So now it was Black's turn, your turn, and you ended up playing here. And so this was once again a really good example of what we talked about in the last review. It's very small and slow. This group is very versatile, so it can live very easily. If Black approaches, let's say if we play somewhere else, right? If Black approaches on this side, oops, then we can just attack this stone, right? And once he lives, you're already alive here. You're already alive in this area, and you can run out. So this side, you don't have to worry about being attacked on. This side, if he attacks you, then you can then play over here if you want to. Because even if he comes around, you're still fine, right? The situation is fine. Even then, you can get away with this. I don't think it would be a problem. This becomes uncomfortable and unfun, though, so that's why I think it might be best then to expand out. But these stones are very versatile. They don't need help, and so you helping them seems very redundant. Does that? And it's low, right? So does that make sense? Like looking at it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to up here when you did the same thing, where you had stones that are very strong and safe, but then you made a defensive move that doesn't make you much points, nor does it put pressure on your opponent. So same thing. So this was really bad, and it seems like a easy habit for you to break. So instead, an expansion over here would be nice. This gives you a nice three-dimensional shape, right? This is very 2D. You're only on one side of the board, and Black is already taking 1, 2, 3, and now a fourth side of the board if you played something like this. So this is the recipe for losing, right? You're far behind in the game now just because of this one move. Try not to make these defensive moves way too early in the game, or when you just don't need to, right? You don't need to defend this group at all. So you need to make your large extensions now. Now is the time to do this. Another move, obviously the computers love the early 3-3, so this is something you can consider also. But for me, I do prefer kind of building. My style, I like to try and play like water, right? So for each game, I usually go with the flow and see what my opponent allows me to do. But most of the time, I do prefer making like large, big building areas, and that's kind of my style. But anyway, so White played here, which I'm sure you can guess what I'm gonna say about it. We can see that, sorry, I said White, but Black played here, and he's between your two stones, right? So we know now this is a great opportunity to kick once again, because he's between you, right? And this is something I mentioned to you before, where this is going to happen a lot in the double-digit Q games. You won't see this a lot when you're facing strong opponents, because strong players aren't going to play between stones that they're going to get bullied and beat up on. So Black should have played something like this, and you can see he's playing 4D chess right now. He's got all four sides and should feel really good. But once he played here, it really allowed you to attack him. And even if he makes a two-space base, it's still very inefficient because White ends up taking Sente, and this is very small. We know, I've harped on this so many times, literally in the last 4 reviews we've done. But when you have a stone between you, then they're approaching your stone, you can kick them, and this would be a really good advantage for you. All right, that's enough said about it, though. I know we've talked about it a lot. So Black did jump, and you got to move forward. So this was also really good for you too. I think Black should have double approached you and come on this side, because once again, this stone is working really well with this stone, right? It's building a big area. But instead he jumped out, which was terrible for him, because now you've built territory on this side and you've built territory on this side. Just remember, though, that all these stones are low, so technically this isn't really that great of territory. But anyway, I'll move on from that too. So this was all fine. This was great, like super good. This was good too, in my opinion. I think now's the time definitely to expand because you have a group here, so you want to stretch out. And I even think this was good too. You know, this is really old school. It's not seen as much often. You know, nowadays we always see this move. But this is still a classic, right? It was played for like, I don't know, 80 years or something before the computer changed it. But anyway, I still think it's really good and it works well with these stones. So I like what's going on here. You got a nice high-low balance. But this was awful. So why do you think this is bad?
There's no, that's just a slow move. That's serves no purpose, really.
Yeah, it's slow. No pressure against your opponent. Which means to me, I call them soft moves, the ones that don't put any hard pressure against your opponent. And so this move was it was really bad. So, and like I said, in both examples, you were playing way too defensively and slow, which allowed black to usually, or your opponent to usually take the advantage. One thing you can note, so when somebody undercuts the stone here, there's a big weakness here. And so the most common move is for you to play something like this. And you can see now that it actually makes it very hard for black to come in here. Because if he does, he's going to be at a severe disadvantage, right? So you kind of want black to come in here so you can beat it up. But this move is saying that, no, I don't want black in here at all. You know, and it just looks inefficient. Black still can still make this really nice invasion. And you can see that black can connect up to its group. I think black might even be able to get away with this, but I would probably do this for safety reasons because I'm hit on both sides of the head. So, but yeah, black can get away with something like this and he would be fine, right? So he would undercut white completely. So this weakness here is ever present, so it's better to, you know, defend it with this. But on that note, even if you didn't want to defend here, which I think you should, you can make a lot better moves than this, right? So playing something like this would have been really nice because you can build essentially this a little bigger. But since this is here, I think this was just meant for a one-time probe and then to come back over here. Another thing you could do is approach on this side, right? Because we have a corner that hasn't been played yet. And so the corners should be first, then the sides, and then the center. So this was very important. So I'm sure now, I'm hoping you can see that, you know, in the games you were making lots of slow moves which were hindering you. This is good. Yeah, this is fine. This might be a little slow, but I didn't mark it, so maybe I should. So instead of playing something like this, black has quite a lot of potential here, right? Like if black just has one more move, like this or this, you can see black's already building kind of a bigger moyo. And so when I look at low, 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 right, I'm like, oh, this is prime time for shoulder hits and like making this group very small. So something like this, or my favorite would be this one, because it's very easy to see that black is going to be pressed in a low position and white's going to be perfectly fine. So I would be very happy with something like this. Because now you can see black can't expand its territory, which happens in the game, if I remember right. Black was able to expand its territory, and it won because it had this huge amount of points here, right? So when we can prevent our opponents from making big areas, we should, right? In this case, this group isn't weak right now. It's strong enough to live on its own. This is strong. White's strong everywhere pretty much, except here, mind you. And so now we can look for weak groups, right? Because we don't have any weak groups of our own, so we don't need to defend. So now we should look for his weak groups, which in this case, to be honest, I really don't see any weak groups. So once we can't find any weak groups, then we look for the biggest moves. Now, when I look at all the edges of the board, all the biggest moves are taken, right? Like the where we can make the biggest amount of territory is already has some planted seeds. So now we can either, if we think we have enough territory to win, then we can just make our territory bigger and we'll win, right? But if we think that black has more territory than us and we're gonna lose, then we can find ways to make him, you know, press down and looking bad so that he'll make less. For me, in this case, I don't know. I mean, I really like this move just because I hate when black plays here. So for me, I like this because it's kind of like helping to connect. It's building more territory. Let's say if black tries to separate us now, I just wouldn't even care. And like, I'd build more territory here, right? I'd try and make this bigger. Of course, then I would have to worry about saving this group. So maybe I would have to play something. But regardless, maybe I wouldn't touch. What I would do is I would play something like this. If black plays something here, you know, then we can move on. We can start making some shape to make two eyes. But white has already gained extra points here just with these two moves alone. But anyway, this looks a little too slow. And it's helping a group that's already safe. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, if I can boil it down to just one thing, you're helping a group that's already safe, which means that you're kind of wasting your time. If it's already okay, then you don't have to worry about it. And to be fair, if you wanted to make this group safer, this would be the move here. It makes like a very large table shape, and it kind of balloons you out, right? But this one allows him to kind of poke at you and poke at you, and then, you know, now you look silly. You look like a big empty triangle almost. So this was a bad move in general.
Okay.
So at this point, you see that with this move, right? With this move and with this move, you're not making any points. And with black's moves, right, this move and this move, he's starting to make a large amount of points, right? And so black's already in a better position than you at this time. You did recognize that, I think, and so that's why you played here. But it's like the saying, a day late and a dollar short, right? This is still a good move to break up this area, but it would have been much better if you played it here, right? Like, this is a much more satisfactory looking breakup than when you allowed it to build up, and then now having to do it. Black should have attacked you on top or something, I think, because he should have tried and attack this, right? And as you run away, he can press on some of your groups and then, you know, come back to attack you more. But he played here, so you were able to kind of run away very easily. You made good shape. This is pretty good shape. So all in all, your reduction was great, but still you can see black got a ginormous amount of points, which, you know, it feels very painful. I don't know what the estimate is at this time. I think the estimate, yeah, so right now it's saying black's leading by a little, but man, this is a lot of points. So this, you should have separated your opponent. This allows him to use the monkey jump to connect up. So this is really bad for you in this case. So always keep in mind of separating your opponent. I think that's what you were trying to do with this, but you missed this, right? Yeah, so he was able to kind of get away with murder here. And this is where I would say you're definitely losing the game now by a lot, because this was your only like big territory. This was your bread and butter. So once you lost this, it's like you're already really far behind, and you know, I don't think you can even find a place to catch up. To make the amount of points you need to win, there's no place on the board to do so unless you can find something to kill, which in this case it looks like you're trying to kill this one. So but yeah, I don't know. it looks like black should be able to live. I'm not sure. Black did a great job of cutting you here, which was very painful. Instead of worrying about this one stone, or maybe I would just come out. Like, I would just run away with this stone. Because if you try this and get cut, now this becomes actually pretty weak, and then this becomes weak. And so you needed to definitely, in a crosscut, you needed to help the weaker side. But by ignoring this move, you kind of sealed your fate. Yeah, it was pretty much over. Once black got this, now there's no coming back. So it was a game-changing move, and it was done. So what we can definitely take away from this game, which I saw in a lot, which was just these slow defensive moves, right? Remember, in the opening, we should expand as much as possible, make the biggest amount of moves we can. But playing something like this is really slow. It's low. It's defending something that doesn't need to be defended. This is something we can always take, right? If somebody's between us, we can usually kind of manipulate it, and so we can take full advantage of attacking this. Once again, this was another slow move that puts you behind. So it's just defending, so it's very soft. You could argue that this is just defending, and not putting much pressure on black. But it is building up a big moyo, right? Because if we look at if black gets this move, right, then black is building a humongous moyo this way. And he's dampering your moyo. And then if we look at white's move, it's limiting black's moyo a bit, and it's building your own moyo. It's making this stuff a lot bigger. So something like this is a really good move. And then finally, here was another example of you kind of saving a group that doesn't need to be saved right now. So right here and right here, both these moves kind of bit you in the butt and put you behind severely. If we were to take anything away from this game, it would be trying to avoid those slow and soft moves. And that was a problem, like I said, in both these games. And both these games you lost, so it's something we can work on. Do you have any questions on like the slow moves or anything like that?
No, I get it. Yeah.
Okay. The last thing is, just for fun, there is a proverb that I always thought was funny. It's called, don't go fishing when your house is on fire. So, if you see your house on fire, you wouldn't grab your fishing pole and just leave, right? So the idea is essentially what this proverb is. It's usually saying if your group's in trouble, then you should protect it, right? And so in this case, both of your groups are in trouble. So you want to make sure to make a defensive move that will help your stones, right? But instead you went fishing, you went somewhere else, right? And then it allowed your house to burn, which essentially these stones got killed, right? I don't know. I always liked that proverb. So it's fun to see when I see it.